As the revolving glass door slowly opened, the entire room seemed to hold its breath for half a second, not out of awe, but out of puzzlement. A girl stepped into Langston Elite, a place where every square foot costs as much as a presidential suite, carrying something no one else here would ever bring: simplicity. There was no dewy skin gleaming under a $500 moisturizer, no sculpted activewear showing off every muscle, not even the haughty stare the rich kids wore like jewelry. Just a young woman in a faded white t-shirt, worn-out sneakers, her hair tied back in a low ponytail, and a canvas bag so weathered it looked like it had been pulled from cold storage. The sharp click of a water bottle cap snapped open at the refreshment bar, cutting through the air like a well-aimed insult. A girl with flawless highlights and a diamond nose ring arched a brow. "What, Langston? Let's delivery girls in now." The group giggled like they were at a fashion show instead of a boxing gym. The head coach, once the face of inspiration for millions of young athletes, barely moved. He just tilted his chin with lazy indifference. New one back corner. No heavy bags, no disruptions. His voice struck with the precision of a punch aimed directly at someone's pride without lifting a fist. Celeste didn't say a word. She didn't bow her head either. She simply shifted her shoulder, letting the canvas bag sway gently like a breeze passing through a room thick with self-importance. Her hand was steady as she set the bag down. No wasted motion, no pleading eyes. She began to stretch each movement, deliberate and slow, as if she were clearing space for something far greater that was about to unfold. No one realized it yet, but they hadn't just seen a girl who looked out of place. They had just stepped into her story, a story that would soon silence the room and leave the ones laughing loudest, bowing the lowest. But not yet. For now, they were still too busy laughing. The warm-up wasn't even over when the show began. Bryce, a muscled-up influencer with a spray-tanned face and a blindingly white smile, walked over to the punching bag next to Celeste, holding a phone mid-live stream. "You guys seeing this?" he said, pointing the camera blatantly at Celeste, his voice booming like the entire gym was his personal studio. "We've got a special guest today, starring in Who Let Her In?" Celeste didn't respond. She simply tightened her gloves and adjusted her stance. But the air had already started to warp. Bryce's friends burst into laughter, the kind of laugh that wasn't really laughter, but a celebration of finding someone low enough to stomp on. Tara, the girl with a toothpaste commercial smile and a heart cold as marble, stepped forward. Without a word, she snatched Celeste's canvas bag and held it up like a trophy. "Let's see what discount smells like," she said, rummaging through it like a bratty child going through someone else's drawers until she pulled out an old photograph. The photo was faded with time, showing Celeste and a salt-and-pepper-haired man standing beside a boxing ring. They were both smiling widely, gloves on eyes, gleaming not just with joy, but with legacy. Tara held the photo up for the whole class. "Is this your dad? What, is he a self-taught trainer in some basement gym?" Laughter exploded on cue. Phones flashed like fireworks. The room echoed not with joy, but with that particular kind of cruelty reserved for viral humiliation. Still, Celeste said nothing. She stepped forward, eyes unblinking, hand outstretched. "Give it back," she said, her voice soft but heavier than any punch, to the pride of someone still capable of feeling shame. Tara hesitated, then tossed the photo to the ground like it was trash. Celeste picked it up, wiped it gently with the edge of her shirt. Never broke eye contact. "You're not worth it," she said quietly, firmly. And she turned away, leaving behind a silence as thin and fragile as the first crack in glass. A crack no one realized just yet would be the beginning of a full-on shatter. After that public humiliation, no one expected the girl, with worn-out sneakers and a torn-up photo, to have the courage to stand again. But Celeste didn't just stand, she walked up to the punching bag as if everything that just happened had been nothing more than a breeze brushing past an undisturbed face. She tightened her gloves, rolled her wrists twice, adjusted her stance, and then the sound came thud-low, deep solid, like a sledgehammer driving into steel. At first, no one noticed. But then came the second punch, and the third, still powerful, still precise. The bag shook. The chain squeaked, and the impact rang sharp, like metal, under pressure. Bryce, who was about to launch another snide remark, froze. His smile twisted. The phone in his hand started to lower. In the corner, Marcus, a seasoned trainer who rarely spoke above the din, leaned toward the head coach and murmured, "Her jab. Cleaner than 90% of the pros I've trained." Tony, the head coach, furrowed his brow. He said nothing, but his eyes were now locked on Celeste's footwork. Light steps. Decisive. No wasted motion. No wobble. Not a single beat missed. In a place where everyone came to prove their strength, it was Celeste, the one they'd mocked most, who alone had total command of her own movement. No flexing, no showing off. Just punch after punch landing with the precision of a muscle memory forged long, long ago. Jessica, the fitness model, with a face carved like marble, stood nearby, her brow furrowed. The smug smile slipped from her lips for a second. Why doesn't she stumble? Not even once she muttered to Kayla, the girl in a custom-made Italian sports bra. Kayla shrugged, but her eyes never left the bag. In a gym where the member list was longer than most resumes, that nameless girl with nothing but her silence had begun to make the whole room take notice. No one said it aloud, but doubt had already started to spread like smoke. Who was she, and why? Though no one knew her name, did every single one of her punches feel terrifying. No one was willing to let Celeste keep hitting the bag in silence. Her composure started to unsettle the crowd, and like a defensive reflex from those used to being in control, they struck back with the only weapon they'd mastered: organized humiliation. Coach Tony, with a smirk laced in mockery, announced, "We're moving on to partner sparring. Celeste, you're with Ethan." The room burst into laughter. Ethan, the arrogant son of an investment mogul, stood nearly 6'3", with brand-new gloves, perfectly white teeth, and a laugh that sounded like it came straight from a penthouse boardroom. "Careful now, warehouse girl," he said loudly, slipping on his gloves and eyeing her like a defective product. "If you cry, I'm not liable." Phones came out again. Cameras clicked on, ready to capture what they all expected to be a one-hit knockout. Ethan threw the first jab, sloppy rushed. Celeste dodged it like water gliding past a stone. She didn't strike back, just lightly tapped his glove and said softly, like correcting a child, "Focus." The room fell silent. Ethan flushed red. He swung harder, missed. Laughter erupted again, but this time it wasn't aimed at Celeste. Still, he didn't stop. He stepped in close, hissed through his teeth, "You're nothing here." Celeste looked up, eyes locked, steady, and unflinching. Her reply wasn't loud, but every word landed like a weight. "If I'm nothing, then why are you so angry?" No one laughed this time. Tony blew his whistle to move on to the next drill, but her words hung in the air like a question aimed straight at the pride of the entire room. What followed wasn't respect. They weren't ready to back down. Instead, they united in their efforts to break her. Connor, the son of one of the club's biggest sponsors, rallied his friends, all dressed in matching workout gear, forming a tight circle during strength training. They passed a weighted ball in rhythm, but when it got to Celeste, they aimed it at her knees, her ribs, her back. "Keep going, warehouse girl," Connor yelled, laughing as one slammed into her knee. They whooped and cheered each other on like they were punishing a human punching bag. But Celeste didn't cry out. She didn't groan. She caught the ball, threw it back, eyes cold as ice. "That's all you've got." Connor froze for a second, but he forced a laugh because around him was a crowd expecting him to lead. Still, that laugh no longer held confidence, just a paper-thin mask trying to cover the panic slowly rising in his chest. They had tried to use muscle to break her. What they didn't know was that Celeste had learned to take pain long before any of them learned how to wear their gym gear the right way. When isolated mockery no longer worked, they changed tactics. No more medicine balls, no more snide remarks. This time, they wanted to use the ring itself to break her. Coach Tony, after a quiet huddle with the self-proclaimed gym elite, announced as if revealing the afternoon's entertainment lineup. "We'll try a light sparring match, 3 against 1. Jessica, Kayla, Rachel, you're in with Celeste. Don't go too hard, it's just to test reflexes." The gym erupted in laughter. "Just a drill," they said the usual phrase before every act of sanctioned humiliation. But the only one not laughing was Celeste. Jessica entered first. Still smug hair tied high, a smirk playing on her lips. She launched a straight jab, wide overpowered, more theatrics than technique. Celeste didn't dodge, just shifted half a step. Her right hand spun, landing a tight hook clean as a laser slice. Jessica recoiled into the ropes, eyes wide, not even understanding where she'd gone wrong. Kayla charged, next, face flushed red, like she was trying to punch away the sting of witnessing that fall. But haste is the enemy of precision. Celeste didn't strike right away. She moved left, then right, then a beat forward, and like a current through her arm, her left fist flew with such speed no one in the room could react in time. Kayla crumpled, no blood, no broken teeth, just a textbook takedown so clean it belonged on a poster. Rachel, the last one, was a real athlete. She didn't underestimate Celeste, but she didn't believe anyone could take down all three. Their bout lasted longer. Rachel had power, skill, and solid fundamentals, but Celeste had something else: experience. Her strikes weren't flashy or excessive, just timed, placed, and finished exactly where they needed to land. The uppercut to Rachel's chin sent her sliding backward across the mat like a scarf drifting in the wind. The packed gym now echoed only with strangled breathing. Phones dropped from hands. Eyes that once mocked now flicked nervously from face to face, silently asking, "What the hell just happened?" Celeste didn't raise her fists. She didn't celebrate. She just stood upright, still, like a stone pillar in the middle of chaos. Her gaze didn't scan the crowd. It locked onto one person, the only man who hadn't said a single word all afternoon. Derek Holt, the world champion, leaning against the ropes, half smirking, half lost in thought. And then he, the one everyone thought was merely observing, finally spoke. "If she's that good, let her go around with me." No one realized that those words were the beginning of history. Derek Holt's words dropped like a bomb into a gym already stretched tight with tension. The man stood over 6'3", with shoulders like brick walls, a fighter who'd floored world-class opponents with a single right hook, now stepping out of his corner, crimson gloves blazing like a storm warning. The crowd roared, jeered, erupted in excitement, as if they were about to witness a clean, brutal takedown. "Poor girl challenges the world champ" was too juicy a headline to miss. Celeste didn't smile, didn't flinch. She just tightened her gloves fingers, gripping her wrist wrap like a ritual. every movement deliberate, steady, entirely void of tension, as if she'd done this 1,000 times before. She stepped onto the ring. No sweat, no trash talk. The bell rang. Derek charged in from the first second like a tank. His opening hook sliced the air, but missed. Celeste stepped back half a beat. The crowd screamed. She didn't counter. Derek launched a second blow, stronger, sharper, and this time Celeste twisted, dipped just enough to slip under it, then in that sliver of a second, sent a right hand straight into his jaw. The punch wasn't heavy, but it was clean and so precise that the entire room held its breath. Derek froze. His eyes widened. That smug grin disappeared. Celeste didn't stop. A left hook measured to the millimeter smashed into his cheekbone. Derek staggered. His left foot slid. She advanced like water, slipping through cracked stone. An uppercut, fast, crisp, no wasted effort, and the world champion's entire body collapsed. There were no more cheers, only the sound of gloves hitting the mat, and the ragged breath of those trying to understand what had just happened. Celeste didn't smile, didn't celebrate. She unfastened her gloves finger by finger, careful, calm, then set them on the ropes gently, like laying down a burden she'd carried for years. Derek lay still. His coach rushed in, calling his name, slapping his face, shaking his shoulders, waving ammonia under his nose. But the champion had yet to rise. In the corner, Sam, a young trainer who hadn't said a word all session, dropped his water bottle. He bent to pick it up, then whispered like someone who'd just recalled a dream. "I knew it. She punches like the one from those old tapes." He pulled out his phone. A video is loaded, a past match. A girl with her hair tied low, eyes sharp as blades, knocking her opponent out in just 2 rounds. The name below read Celeste Langford, undefeated 5 years ago. The room began to fall silent. Eyes turned to the screen, then to Celeste, then to the past, and to a truth they'd been blind to all because she hadn't worn enough glamour to be seen with respect. Derek was still unconscious, but the whole gym had just awakened from the dream of their own arrogance. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew what they had just witnessed wasn't luck, wasn't some girl who once learned to box like a few tried to mutter in weak self-defense. Derek Holt's fall, the man who had broken the ribs of 3 opponents, was real. And Celeste Langford was no longer just the girl with the canvas bag. She was the nightmare of every prejudice in that room. At that moment, Maria, the oldest receptionist in the gym, the one who quietly wiped down benches, folded towels, and remembered every face since Langston Elite opened, stepped out from behind the counter. Her hands were trembling, holding a folded, worn piece of paper. Her eyes were wet. Her voice was soft, but unwavering. "I kept this from the day she came in." A first-day trial form. She wrote, "I don't need perks. I don't want special treatment. I just want to punch again, one more time." The room froze. Head coach Frank, the same man who had once pointed Celeste to the darkest corner of the gym without a second thought, now limped to the center of the ring, holding a crumpled folder. His hands shook as he flipped through its pages. Then he looked up, eyes red. She was once the national lightweight boxing champion. Undefeated, she didn't leave because she lost. She left because of a shoulder injury after her final win. And now she's back. And none of you recognized her because you never truly looked. A crushing silence spread across the gym, as if the entire room had just looked into a mirror, and what they saw staring back wasn't Celeste, but themselves, with all their pettiness, shallowness, and cowardice. Jessica, her once glossy highlighted hair, now limp like shredded pride, stepped forward, her voice trembling. I didn't know who you were." Celeste looked her straight in the eyes, not angry, not spiteful, just carrying a truth that cut deep. "It's not because you didn't know. It's because you didn't care." Her words dropped like a verdict that needed no trial. Jessica backed away, face pale. Kayla came next, awkward, almost pleading. "Could you teach me that hook you threw?" Celeste walked past her as if she hadn't heard, but she still answered without turning back. "Learn respect first." Bryce, still clutching his phone, lips quivering, stepped forward. I'll delete the video. I'll apologize publicly. I swear." Celeste didn't break stride. Her voice came like breath, but sharp as a blade. Too late. Each of her footsteps across the gym floor now wasn't just movement, it was a reckoning. A living lesson that respect isn't earned by fame alone. Sometimes it only takes one person who dares to stand, dares to stay silent at the right moment, and dares to make the world bow to what's right. This gym had once been a stage for those who loved to perform, but today it became a classroom, and Celeste, the girl once shoved into the shadows, was now teaching its most important lesson, that respect doesn't come from expensive gloves, but from how you treat the ones who have nothing. 3 days later, the full video of the match between Celeste Langford and Derek Holt surfaced across every platform. But what made it go viral wasn't the flawless knockout. It was the short caption, written by Celeste herself. "I didn't come back to be recognized. I came back to remind them that skill doesn't care about faces, doesn't bow to fame, and doesn't need to shout to earn respect." Within 48 hours, the video hit over 50 million views. News stations called for interviews. International coaches requested private lessons. And those who once mocked her now shared the clip with public apologies. But Celeste didn't appear anywhere afterward. She withdrew. Not to be famous, but to leave behind a silence. One that made people ask themselves, why did it take a punch to finally see a person, Langston Elite the gym, once proud of its slogan, "Only for the best," quietly replace the sign at its entrance. "Only for those who respect." And even more remarkably, in the month that followed, the number of sign-ups from older women, people of color, and beginners skyrocketed sixfold. They didn't come for the sport, but because they wanted to stand where a woman once stood, ignored, underestimated, and made the world rise without ever lifting her voice. Bryce, the one who filmed her mockingly, was the first to send a long email offering to volunteer as Celeste's media assistant if she ever opened her own academy. Jessica, Kayla, and Rachel, the former queens of the gym, began competing in amateur leagues with a completely different spirit. And Derek Holt, after recovering, sent her a handwritten note with just 7 words. "I learned more in those 3 minutes than in 10 years of fighting." And Celeste, she answered no one. She moved to a small town and opened a free boxing class for underprivileged kids, naming it Silent but Unbroken. You've just witnessed a story that, whether you know boxing or not, probably made your heart race in the final moments. But what choked me up wasn't the punch that floored a champion. It was the moment a woman once dismissed chose not to retaliate, but to stand tall, silent, and let that silence be the strongest punch of all. The lesson here isn't just don't judge by appearances. It's take a hard look at how you treat the people you think are beneath you. Because sometimes the person you ignored today is the one rewriting the rules tomorrow. My view is, this kindness doesn't need instant recognition, but it's always right. And sooner or later, the world will have to listen. Celeste didn't win because she was stronger. She won because she never gave up on herself. Not when mocked, not when isolated, not even when erased from sight. If you've ever been in that place, felt invisible, clenched your fists just to keep from crying, then this story is for you. And if, like me, you believe that integrity and kindness still have a place in this noisy world, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and most importantly, hit subscribe to Toch Story. Because this isn't just a channel for stories. It's where those who've been overlooked come to reclaim their voice. Toch Story, where we tell your story even if no one ever has.